But I share with you today that God is speaking to a population in church society, calling forth the men. Recently, we went through a census throughout the United States, and they're still tabulating the figures that have been gathered. And it's reported that there have been recorded over 56,000 missing men. 56,000 missing men missing. That doesn't mean they lost. They're out there someplace, but they're not accounted for in the census. We're not talking about people who are incarcerated. You know full well that there are more than 56,000 incarcerated men. But these are 56,000 men estimated that they don't have an address. They live on the streets. They live with mama. They live with auntie. They live with old girl from time to time. They are nomadic in their behavior, traveling around from place to place, and so because we can't track them down with our census collectors, we have 56,000 plus men missing. That's larger than the city of Huntington population. You take all the people in Huntington and they would disappear. Somebody would become alarmed. But it doesn't seem to matter to us. We have all these men missing, and the majority of those who are missing are African American. I heard the statistic, and I'm not exactly sure that it's verifiable, but someone I heard just this past week say that 78% of the work in the church is performed by women. If you look at the church as a whole, 78% of the work that is performed in the church is performed by women. Now, that doesn't mean that 78% of the people who are going and 78% of the people who are working are women. And so, brothers and sisters, we have a problem. We are in a dilemma that the men are missing. In the divine plan of God, it was that men should have a place of prominence. We have examples among us. I was a bit late arriving here in Williamson today because I stopped to visit a prostitute.
That's all right. That's all right. Come on, preacher. That's all right. Come on, preacher. Speak the word. That's all right.
My wife, I told her to stay in the car. I got to go in. As I was about to go in, I looked behind me, and Minister Page was trying to follow me. I said, go back. You can't go with me. Be back in a little bit. What had happened was that yesterday morning, one of the ladies who is addicted to crack cocaine and has a habit that she must support, and because she has this habit, she sells herself. Not because she wants to, but because there's a spirit that drives her. Early yesterday morning, I received word that someone had gotten shot just a little less than 2 blocks from our church. And when I heard that, I wondered if it was some of the women that I talked to from time to time. And I went on, I had another appointment. I came back from my appointment. I was driving up the street, and I saw this lady that was in my head. I saw her pimp. I don't understand. You've been to Huntington. How can you be a pimp riding a bicycle? What kind of self-respect? Am I? Never seen nothing like. Supposed to have a sunroof top, diamond in the back. Anyway, her pimp. I saw him, but I didn't see her, and he looked distressed, and I thought that may be, and I went home, I went to the church, and I did get word it was her. Well, they had sequestered her at the hospital, didn't want anybody to go in. They weren't even letting people know where she was in the hospital because they didn't want the shooter that was still on the loose, and they didn't want them to come back and kill her in the hospital, pretending to be family or something. And it's all jacked up there in Huntington. But I wanted to go and visit her because I knew that we had a connection. I told our church, one day I was coming to the church, I approached the church, and she was sitting on the steps of the church. I've been trying to get her to come to the church, and she works down the street, and I was trying to get her to come to the church. She knew where it was. I pulled up to the church. There she's sitting on the steps. I got out of the car. She said, oh, excuse me. I said, no, sit back down. You're right where you're supposed to be. I've been trying to get you to come to this church for years, girl. Sit down. And so we talked, and I said, I want you to come on in. I said, I want you to come in and let me show you where your seat is. She said, no, I can't. I said, yes, you can. Come on. And so I took her into church, and we went in, and Sister B. Spradley was there. And I introduced her to B, and B hugged her, and the custodian was there and introduced, and she started lighting up. Somebody cares. Took her up and made her sit down in the pews. I said, this is where you're supposed to be, Sunday. She started confessing a whole lot of stuff. I wasn't interested in all that. She knew she was wrong. I ain't had to tell her she's wrong. I'm trying to tell her I ain't here to beat you down. I'm trying to help you to get up. And so I had this conversational relationship with her already. And I called this morning. I called to the police chief. I said, look, I need to get in to see Becky. I've been talking with her, and I wonder if you can make an exception. And they said, well, let me call and find out. Call the detectives and see what they say. Well, long story short, the detectives said, okay, we need you to go in because she's not talking to us. We need you to talk to her. And I went to visit with this young lady. But as I went in, she was lying there and all the tubes and everything in her. They said she was in critical condition. And she seemed to be asleep. And the nurse was on the outside. And I said, is she okay? Can I talk? Is she alert? She said, oh, yeah, she's alert. I said, can I wake her? She said, oh, yeah, go ahead and wake her. She's not very happy. Well, when you've been shot, you're not happy, I guess. I mean, you've been shot, you're not happy, and you're coming down off that high, you're not, a whole lot of things, you're just not happy. And I went in and I took her by the hand. I said, Becky. She opened her eyes and saw me. She gripped my hand. And one tear started to come out of her face. And I said, don't try to talk. I just wanted to come here and let you know that I'm praying for you. I'll leave my card, and if you need to have anybody call me, you be sure to have them call. When I got ready to leave the nurse, and I prayed with her and prayed the Lord would spare her soul and give her, I wanted her to understand that God is not just, God, she could have easily been killed. Just like you could have been killed. You remember when you woke up just in time to pull the car back over into the lane? I mean, I ain't talking about going to the club or walking the street. She could have been gone. And I reminded her of that. But God has something special for that young lady. And I just want you to pray for her. But as I was leaving, the nurse said her father is, I told the nurse, I said, I left my card. I want you to give me a call if she needs me. She said, fine. She said, her father's out here someplace. I said, he is. And she said, yes, his name is, she told me his name. And I said, well, I'll go get, and I heard Becky back in the room say, my dad, her father, a man who she felt cared about her, a man who had traveled 8 hours when he heard that she was in such condition. This inspired her. When we have a responsibility, God gave Adam a position of prominence. And he intended Adam to live out that responsibility.